The rolling hills of Belgium brings us to the small, well, not so small town of Francorchamps for round 3 of season 10 of the Spec-5 World Tour. And a bit of information about this circuit: Spa-Francorchamps is one of the classic race circuits beloved by drivers and spectators alike, where today the true essence of speed can be explored in spectacular style on a relatively safe and modern facility. However, it hasn't always been like this. In its original incarnation, Spa was a circuit truly to be feared, as it posed dangers almost like no other. The extensive redesign in the late 1970s created the outline of a much-needed redesign in the which is now a completely standalone racing circuit. Outside of F1, the circuit has a full calendar of events, including the 24 Hours of Spa, the FIA World Endurance event for sports cars, a 24-hour race for motorcycles, the International GT Open, World Rallycross, and a popular historic meeting, the Spa Classic, and a 25-hour race for Citroën 2CVs to round off the racing season. And we're here for our own virtual racing season for round 3 of the Spec-5 World Tour here from circuit to Spa-Francorchamps. My name is Alex Andersen. I am joined in the booth by Mike Braun with Adam Thompson in our virtual production truck. And Mike, with just the nature of this racetrack and how these cars are and just the straights and everything that is incorporated into this facility, we are in for a great show here tonight.
Oh, Alex, thanks for having me along today. This is going to be an exciting race. This is one of my favorite road courses, and just the field of these cars and how important the draft is and hanging on with each other and everybody having to work together to really get around this track and be competitive the entire race. I'm really looking forward to what holds out for the end of this race.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking with the draft, I mean, the Camel straight out of Randall, people are going to be hanging on to each other for a while down there. And from Stavolo to the bus stop chicane, I mean, it's going to be a wild ride. And I mean, we could see some stuff like, I know we're talking almost an hour in advance, but we could see things like last lap passes for wins going into the chicane. So, I mean, we could have it all here, as it looks like we are just just under 3 minutes away from qualifying, getting started. So, I mean, who's your pick for pole? I mean, Rui Coimbra, he's been strong in the first 3 races of the season, sweeping all 3. So, I mean, I wouldn't call him too good at qualifying, but he's not really that bad either. So, I mean, who's your pick for pole here tonight?
I have not. This is my first time watching these guys. I was able to go back and watch a couple of the broadcasts, and Rui has definitely been the guy to watch in the pro class. He's been making some really smart moves and getting past guys when he needs to. But in the open class, I've been really impressed with Ray Lombardi. He's almost a full half-second faster than anybody else in this open practice session. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can lay it down in qualifying, get a good starting spot up there ahead, and just get away and run away from the rest of the open guys.
And another person to worry about here, who actually I don't currently see on the ticker, is Joshua Soto. I'm not sure if he's here tonight. I don't see him on the ticker, but it looks like Rui Coimbra might have just taken fastest lap. But I mean, we have some big names up in the top 5. I mean, Simon Foweather, definitely a guy who won. Tom Rath as well back there. Jedediah Babinek, he was so close to winning this race last season off of fuel mileage. He just ran out coming to the last corner. And I mean, that's another thing to bring up. I mean, these guys are going to have to pit once during this race. But I mean, with people gambling on fuel strategy, you think we might see the same thing where people just aren't able to get it to the line?
Yeah, you're definitely going to see some guys do some short fueling, and then they're going to try to stay in that draft and clutch it or just coast at the end of the Kemmel Straight and just lift off a little early and coming into some of these other corners and try to save as much fuel as they can, because you can gain so much time by just not fueling in that extra gallon in pit lane. So I think that's going to be a few guys' strategies this race.
And as we are just about to start qualifying here, it looks like Adam might have some issues there, so we're going to see if we can push through those. But, oh, there's Soto down there in 14th place. I didn't see him all the way down there, so, I mean, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but, I mean, Soto down there in 14th. Mike, I don't know if you've seen his performances in the first 3 races, but his performances have been just absolutely incredible. The first 2 races of the season, he went from last on the grid to first both times. Then 3rd race of the season, he was up front all day. So, I mean, what do you expect from him? He's down there in 14th right now.
He might be playing a little possum. Just waiting along and watch him come out in qualifying, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him definitely in the top 4 or 5.
Yeah, as it looks like qualifying has just gotten underway here at Spa. And, I mean, we have some really interesting things that we need to watch for here. I mean, just drivers from all over the place are going to attack this circuit for 20 minutes for the fastest time possible. I mean, it's really going to be incredible to watch these guys go around. And if we can go on board at one point, you're going to be able to see how these guys are going to have to take to this track and how places like the Kemmel Straight and turns 15 to the last 2. I mean, people are going to be all over each other for the entire duration of this race.
It's going to be a lot like a NASCAR race where you see the guys just group together, and if you lose within a second or 2 of somebody else, you're going to lose that lead draft, and you've got to try to make it up, because you just can't do it on motor alone, especially in these cars. I mean, everybody has driven the Mazda 5s in the beginning of iRacing, but these guys take it to a new level. I mean, some of these iRating guys that are in this just definitely take this car to a completely new level.
And another thing to watch out for, I mean, we know Rui Coimbra has swept the first 3 races of the season, but quite on the contrary, in the open class for these guys, there has been 3 separate winners in all 3 races, with Josh Olson getting the win at Daytona, then Charles Vaccaro at Sebring, and then Sean Hayes at Virginia International Raceway. So, I mean, you think we might see another repeat stretch of winners, especially with how fast Ray Lombardi is here tonight.
Well, this track does cater to a lot of guys that might be good at VIR. So I don't see Sean Hayes on the board right now, but anybody that really ran good at VIR might do pretty good here because that track is such a rhythm track, and these cars are so free. You have to really let the car carry all that speed through the turns, and VIR is so precise and precision that the guys that ran up front there, I definitely think they're going to be up front on this race.
Yeah, and Adam is telling me that we're gonna do the onboard. I don't believe that I can do that right now, as I think I might have been disconnected from this session. So, Mike, I'm gonna let you go through that, and I'm gonna see if I can figure this out over here.
All right, looks like we got Rui coming into the Blanchimont section, coming into the chicane right now. So he's going to get ready to start what looks to be his first timed lap right now as he's coming into the chicane. Nice and tidy. You want to come a little high through here, get a good run down this straight right here into La Source. You want to make sure you get as much speed down La Source as you can, especially with the timing right here. So you get going down the straightaway and you get into La Source. And you have to get out of La Source as quick as you can because this is all your momentum all the way up this whole El Rouge, Radion, and the Kemmel straight. It's such a long run, and these cars don't have a lot of power to get them through there. So we're going to carry the speed all the way up here and see how he gets through here. I mean, especially on cold tires on these Mazdas, I'm sure they get pretty hairy and pretty light through here. You see there wasn't a lot of steering input on them coming through a Rouge and up the straightaway. You can hear it just topping out in fourth gear. There's just nothing in this anymore. It's such a long straightaway, still climbing, getting 117 miles an hour, and then hard under braking as he comes into Lacombe's right now. And it's going to be a fun race to watch these guys. I mean, it's going to be a good 16-lap race for these guys for this whole 40-minute session. So we're definitely going to be in for a good treat with these guys.
Yeah, we absolutely will be. I apologize there, Mike. I'm going to hop in here. Alex had to take a quick break. I think he forgot his lunch there outside of the broadcast booth, but he's coming back in here in just a little while. But yeah, we're watching Rui still right now. He has just gone through, Speaker's corner, and then the double Goff. That's not how I remember this. I remember this corner being Pouon. I just think it's a funny name. But yeah, Rui seems to be keeping it pretty tidy at the moment. About to come through Lafon, and then this is when it gets pretty technical through here. So you've got to be real careful. You got the right and then the left, but you can get very, very wide as he uses all the track he can. And right here, this will sneak up on you. This first right-hander of Campus, you can get out wide there and catch an off-track pretty quickly. Then he's going to come through Stavilo and down the backstretch. And Alex, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, and this is another point on the racetrack. Sorry about that interruption there. You're just going to notice, like the Kemmel Straight, this place just keeps going on and on and on, and you just have to get the most consistent line because you have to turn down this straight. Just keep your foot in it. Just get the smoothest line possible. Try and maintain as much speed as you head towards the final chicane here. And hard onto the brakes, going to drop it down in first gear, I believe, is Rui Coimbra. Yep, there he goes, over the first curb, over the second curb, and he's going to bring it out of the final corner. Big wheel inputs there to try and just keep that car going straight, and across the line, he's going to come. I believe he's going to be the first person to set a lap there with a 2:48.264. Back into the first hairpin. Ronnie Coates and Zabelski are across the line. Can't manage to get up to him. Zabelski with a 2:49.5 and Ronnie Coates with a 2:48.7. So here, this is Ray Lombardi, who was 5/10 in front of the second quickest open driver there in that 112 machine. So we got to see how he heads through Stavilo. And down this long straightaway, you're going to see a lot of different lines coming through this section of track as it's just so long, and it's just people trying to figure out the best line possible to try and maintain as much speed as they head towards the chicane.
Yeah, Roy's coming down here this straightaway section here, and the car looks good. He's not all over the place. He's running all the off-track areas that he can without getting that penalty. He's going to come into that chicane right now, hard under the brakes. You can see the nose just dive on it, and how the back end on these things gets so light, real smooth through the first chicane. Doesn't hit too much curb, keeps it nice and clean, gets out onto the rumble strip, and is able to get a good acceleration out as he comes across the stripe here. Let's see what kind of time he gets, and that's going to drop him up into 9th overall, but out in front in the open class right now, a 248.9, and he's able to out qualify 4 pro guys right off the bat on his first lap out. That's really impressive for an open guy.
Yeah, but he can't snooze on the car 2 places behind him at the moment. Sean Hayes down there in P11, under a 10th, if my math is correct, behind Ray Lombardi. So that's going to be a really close race between these 2 guys if they stay in those same positions, as we still have around 12 and a half minutes of qualifying remaining. So still a lot of time for these guys to improve on their lap times and get through this racetrack to try and set themselves up. And actually, it looks like Keen up there in the 271 car, while I wasn't paying attention, actually has taken the lead. This is Scott Keen here in the Fanatec 271 car. So he has actually gotten provisional pole from Rui Coimbra by just over 300ths of a second, which for this track is a pretty big gap. But even if it stays like this, the draft is going to keep everybody together. And speaking of gaps, it's a pretty big one between 3rd and 4th. There is Tom Rath, about 2.5, that's two and a half tenths there behind Mitchell Peak, and then Mitchell Peak pretty close to Coimbra behind him, but just under a 10th. And then that gap to the top 3, I mean, the draft is still going to help these guys, but I mean, it can't help them that much, you think?
Oh, the draft's going to be just a whole lot. I mean, it's going to be at least a second gained with running the draft around this track. But with 4 laps of qualifying that these guys get to do, the tires are going to get warmer and warmer, and the qualifying times are going to start dropping. As you see, Rory comes by and actually picks up the pace and gets out in front of Keen by quite a margin on the Keen's last lap. But Roy's out in front now by 2/10, and that's a good 3/10 pickup just from lap 1 to lap 2. As we're going by through the area there with Coimbra, and you can see he's just carrying all that speed up that section there. It's just not a lot of horsepower for these guys to pull up here.
Hey, I do have a quick question for you real quick. While we're watching this qualifying, I'll pose this to both of you guys, and then I'll let you answer it, obviously. If you're qualifying at Spa in a Mazda Miata, would you want to qualify up front, or would you want to qualify somewhere, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and catch that draft? How much do you guys think fuel is going to come into play? And I know you already asked this, but if you're running up front that whole time, do you think that we will see battles at the beginning of the race?
That's actually a good question. And while you were talking there, I thought of at least a halfway decent answer that honestly, if you're in Mitchell Peak or Tom Rath's position there in 3rd or 4th, I would think from my own experience that you would be in the money spot back there. Because at that point, and this is a big if the leaders decide not to battle and just to stalemate it for the entire first half of the race, and you're in their position, you could save a lot of fuel and end up doing what people like Soto did last week and getting a lower amount of fuel into the tank, so that way you can spend less time on pit road and just make sure that you have enough fuel to finish the race and end up getting a big gap to your competitors. So honestly, answering that, Adam, I would probably want to be in 3rd or 4th right now, hoping that the leaders don't battle. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Alex. I would say anywhere from 3rd to 5th in the order, it would be my sweet spot. It's just a better spot to, like you said, to save fuel, because I mean, the pit lane time here is 39 to 41 seconds, and your box time is going to be right around 20 seconds. And if you're able to actually get a little less fuel in there and cut that box time down to 18, 17, 18, 19 seconds, that's a full second saved on the track. And how much gap can you get on those guys? A full second away is going to be the difference between catching a draft and not catching a draft.
Well, that's the one thing you also have to think about, though, while you do that. I mean, if you are a full second ahead, maybe saving fuel isn't such a good idea because you are a full second ahead. And we've seen in past in these Miatas, when drivers work together, you get a draft train of 3, 4, 5 people, and you're the car, the sitting duck, kind of like we were just talking about NASCAR a little earlier. You're just a sitting duck out there. You're going to get freight trained by those guys if you're not careful.
Yeah, but then again, at the same... Oh, sorry, Mike.
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, contrary to that, I would think of the man we're looking at right now, Joshua Soto. We saw what he did last week at VIR, Adam. I know you were in the production truck, and we saw last week what happened to him there. He ended up taking less fuel, got out maybe 3 or 4 seconds ahead of everybody else, and even with the draft and getting that increased boost down those straights at VIR, they just couldn't catch up to him. They only got around him because he ran out of fuel on the last lap. So contrary to that, even if you stay out and you're way ahead, even if you're a sitting duck, you might not be sitting, you might be running away from those guys. As even with the draft, if you can maintain your speed through the corners, you'll find yourself in the lead come the end of the race.
I really think that the draft is going to be so much more important than it is at VIR. I have to actually, after thinking about my answer and listening to Adam, I really do think that 1 to 2 seconds is not going to make the difference on this track with these cars. At VIR or at a smaller track that's, under 2 miles or so, I think it would make a huge difference. But because this track is so long, so much flow, and these guys are going to be freight trained, that's going to be the fast way. You're going to want to be in that second or third spot, and I would honestly be happy to sit there for the entire race and just park myself behind the leader and run that entire race, and then just make it a last ditch and make those moves when you need to on that last lap.
Well, another thing that you have to add in, if you're leading on the white flag, what are you really going to do if you have a pack of cars behind you? Because you have 2 massive straights. You could probably get freight trained by 3 or 4 cars in that time frame. Or if you really want to be aggressive and go for it, you could try blocking the run, but at the same time, that has its own risks of you just throwing a bad one and getting turned straight head on into the guardrail and ending your night. So, I mean, that's another risk factor that we have to take into consideration for these guys if they try to block an incoming run.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, this is my first time being with you guys. I am really excited to see what these guys can do with these cars. And I mean, it's like we mentioned earlier about being with NASCAR. This is like the NASCAR of road racing, because it's all going to be pack racing, and guys have to play nice with each other and be patient and hold their lines, and or else they're going to end up out of the race and not even able to compete at all. If somebody falls off that back of that draft train, they're screwed basically for the entire rest of the race. One little mistake could mess somebody's complete race up.
Well, heading back to pit strategy for that matter, if you end up falling out of the pack, you could try and pull off a pit lane strategy to try and put yourself back in contention. If you take less fuel into the car, know you're going to be with the leaders, and you end up just barely hanging on to the tail end of that pack, you could save some major amounts of fuel down those straightaways. So, I mean, you think that could also play a part into it?
Oh, absolutely. No, I have to agree. I think that is the scenario where short filling could definitely help you out. But if you don't do the timing correctly and end up on that just outskirts of the draft and not able to pull yourself back in, then you just did it for naught, and you have less fuel, and you might not even be able to make the end of the race at all.
Yeah, we saw people not make it to the checkered flag at VIR last week due to not putting enough fuel in, Soto being one of them, although there were a few others. So it's just going to be so important here, as we have just 4 minutes left in qualifying. I believe we still have quite a few people out on track. I believe we were looking at Rui Coimbra just tried to set another hot lap there with a 2:48.1. Looks like he's not going to improve on his time there, as I believe Michael Coates was out there trying to set a lap as well. Sean Hayes could be doing the same thing. Here's Michael Coates through Stavolo. We saw this driver do really well at VIR last week, but it seemed that incidents just plagued his whole day, so hopefully things will be better for him this week here as he heads down this back straightaway between Stavolo and the chicane. Here's Stephen Hellewell back here in 22nd for the open class going through the final chicane. You can see a bit of lockup there. Mistakes could plague drivers' days like you were mentioning, Mike, and I mean, speaking of lockup, how much do you think that might affect one of these cars? Because the brakes are really effective, but you think how much could something as simple as brake lockup could affect one of these guys?
Well, and the size of these tires are so small and such a small contact patch. The dynamics of the tires in these, if you lock them up and you overheat them, you're going to be messed up for the next couple turns. It could cause you to be too loose or push too much because it's overheated one end of the car or the other, and then it's going to take you a couple turns just to get the tires cooled back down into that operating temperature. So it could throw people off behind you if you're locking up and you're in that draft train. And you end up locking up, somebody could end up getting into you, or you might end up getting into somebody else and causing, all sorts of damage and chaos.
Most certainly here as we see Andrew Kosek looking for one final lap here. And I think it might just be the overlay, but I think he's on his out lap right now, currently with a blistering 5 minute and 55 second lap going there for himself. So I think he's on his out lap right now. Don't think he'll be able to set another one. So he might remain there in 25th as he heads through Lacombe and towards Rivage here. And just look at how much these guys have to eat the curb. The off-track is just beyond the curve, so they can go that far out. But breaking into Rivage, you notice some line differences into this continuous hairpin, whereas some other drivers, unlike what Kosek did, would try and get right to the outside to get a nice dive in, whereas Andrew turned in a little bit earlier and entered from kind of towards the middle of the track. So, I mean, differing lines are also a big part of this racetrack, especially through parts like that back straightaway as you head towards the final chicane. Because, I mean, one line could save you for just fractions of a second compared to another line that might give you better momentum into the bus stop, but ultimately cost you just a few more fractions of a second compared to another.
And I think the lines like that, the time that it's going to make a difference is in qualifying when you're out there by yourself. But once the whole race starts and you've got everybody on the track together, everybody's going to have to work together and make it, a whole team effort to get these cars around. You can't start bumping people. You can't start banging doors. You really got to stay clean with these cars, because if you lose any kind of aero damage on them, they're going to start slowing down, and you're going to just, another reason why you could lose a draft. If you take a little bit of front end damage from bumping into somebody, you're not going to be able to get that speed when you're going all the way up the Kemmel straight or down the back straight. And it's just going to sacrifice your race just because you were trying to draft super close with somebody and took that damage.
Yeah, and damage, like you mentioned, is damage. Another thing that could really mess up somebody's night here is that it looks like Kosek is going to pull his car into the pits, not able to complete that lap. And we are just about at the end of qualifying here for tonight. As we look at the info screen, you can see what these guys are dealing with about an 84-degree track temp, around 71 degrees in air temp, and 10 miles an hour of wind here for these guys. And it's a 4.31 mile track. And I mean, just the length of this circuit, especially in these cars, is just incredible. Almost 3-minute lap times. But here's your starting grid for tonight. Rui Coimbra ends up taking pole in the number 78 car with a 2:48.081. Scott Keane just under a tenth and a half behind him there in second. Mitchell Peak lines up third, only 2.5 tenths behind your leader. Tom Rath there in P4. Simon Foweather rounds out the top 5 there in 5th. Ronnie Coates in P6. Jedediah Babinek in P7. Jordy Fike in P8. Michael Coates in P9. Ray Lombardi takes pole for the open class in P10. Lee Martin there in P11. And Lombardi can't snooze on the guy lining up right behind him, Sean Hayes, who is just under a tenth behind him in terms of time. Greg Mack there in 13th. Brian Zabelski in P14. Josh Olson in P15. Charles Vaccaro in P16. Jerry DiPiero in a P17. Paulo Coimbra in P18. Joshua Soto in P19. Edgar Sancinelli in P20. Stephen Hellowell in P21, Bruce Silva in 22nd, Sean Ruiz in 23rd, Greg Brockway in 24th, Andrew Kosick in 25th after not being able to complete that lap, and John Casey rounds out your field. Actually, I believe he was the winner of last week, if I'm not mistaken. I could have that wrong there. Starting in... Oh, I am actually wrong on that now that I'm checking, so excuse me. But starting back there in P26 is John Casey's. We are just 30 seconds shy of these guys being able to move and get to racing here. Actually, I was wrong. Sean Hayes did win last week, so apologies for that. But, I mean, bit of pre-race predictions from yourself, Mike. I mean, I personally think this one's going to be an absolute barn burner for the Spec-5 World Tour guys.
No, it is definitely going to be a good one. You got top 9 guys are all the pro guys, and these guys are just going to suck into line and they're just going to get going. But it's going to be fun to watch the guys swapping spots, seeing the guys under braking to try to inch their way up farther and farther up the board and get tucked in behind that race leader and try to save as much fuel as you can. I mean, that's all we've talked about that whole qualifying session is draft, fuel, saving this, saving that. But that's going to make the difference between taking the checkered flag and not taking the checkered flag.
Yeah, but the iRacing safety car is going to dive into the safety of the pit lane, and off the final corner, the anticipation looms in the air here in the town of Francorchamps. The drivers are waiting, the green flag is out, and we're racing here tonight for round 3 of the Spec-5 World Tour here at Spa. Rui Coimbra and Scott Keen side by side for the moment. There's a spinner back there. I believe that was Sean Ruiz. Jedediah Babinek actually didn't start the race here, and it looks like this is what happened to him. Bit of slow motion here as he headed towards the final corner ready to take the green flag in that number 10 car, and it looks like a mistake before the green flag ever came out. It looks like he turns into the second corner in contact with the 62 car there of Greg Brockway before they got around the last corner. I reckon race control is going to have something to say about that, but it looked like just a meeting in the middle as Tom Rath is off track back there now, and it looks like Scott Keen has fallen back to third, but Rui Coimbra easily takes the lead. Here comes Mitchell Peak to the outside of him down the Kemmel straight for the first time. Mitchell Peak gets his nose out front. He'll have the advantage into Lacombe if he can hold on to this into the corner. The guy's on the brakes, and Mitchell Peak takes the lead already in this race. So already chaos here and a pass for the lead before we even get to turn 5.
Yeah, it's not what I expected. I expected these guys to get in line and just start working together, but Mitchell Peak had another idea, and he said, this is mine. I'm going to go take it, and I'm going to start running away. But you've got Ronnie Kotz right now in the 4th spot, and Jordy Fike all the way up into 5th already. So, I mean, you've got Jordy already gaining 3 spots, and we're not even halfway around the race yet, or halfway around the track for the first time. You got all these guys jumping up. Lombardi jumping up 4 spots from his earlier spot in the 10th. I mean, that's an open guy jumping all the way up. So, I mean, it got to be pretty crazy. And Weather dropping back 8 spots. I mean, that's huge. But it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not something that he could easily do. It's not going to be too hard to do, but it's only 45 minutes. If you sit back here too long, it's going to run away from you.
And I think what might have happened to Simon Fowler is he was involved in an incident with Tom Rath, who currently is out of this race, and I saw him off track heading out of Radion, so I mean, we can see what happened to him here. Here's Charles Vaccaro up through Radion. There's Tom Rath behind him. Oh, that's a car hard into the guardrail. Charles Vaccaro destroyed. That was a big hit for both that Not a Team car and Charles Vaccaro. Tom Rath out of the race as a result of it. That was Paulo Coimbra. Just gets the curb, gets loose out of Radion, and that's a massive hit here for this racetrack. And I mean, that's really one of the most dangerous parts of this track, is we've seen incidents there with major hits in real life. Here's another angle. Charles Vaccaro up through Radion. Tom Rath off track ahead of him, and it looks like he just oversteers off Radion, overcorrects it, and big hit into the guardrail for that 164 car. That has to hurt.
Yeah, we've talked about it earlier about just being cold tires, and that first time coming through there at full speed, and they're still, you could see what happened to Rath right there. He got side by side with somebody and started getting a little hairy, and they just touched just enough to get him off into the grass. But that first lap through for through Radion and El Rouge is so scary in these cars. I mean, any car, when you're doing the 24-hour race here, this is the one section that always scares me every single lap, especially at the beginning of a tire stint. You get through this section and the car just wants to slide everywhere, but you still have to be on the gas to get through that section and stay in touch with anybody.
Yeah, and another thing I mentioned, or no, I didn't mention, I didn't see here is the side-by-side for third, Mitchell Peak, Scott Keane trying to get around him as Rui Coimbra has already taken the lead back, as how Soto had to dodge that wreck. He essentially had to jump his car from the right side of the track to the left, and it was a very impressive sequence of driving here. But already, there's a bit of a breakaway in the main pack, which after those lap 1 incidents, Rui Coimbra, Mitchell Peak, and Scott Keane have already opened up a 2-second gap on Ronnie Coates behind him. And I mean, we were mentioning that 2 seconds isn't a lot at this racetrack, but for this early on in this race, that could be a lot for the drivers in that second pack.
That is a huge amount, and we're only on our second lap. But you see Foweather already working his way back up to 11th spot. He's working his way back up slowly. He's getting through this pack, and I really think that by the end of this race, we're going to see Foweather towards the top of the boards.
Yeah, but he's going to have a lot of work to do. Although he knows what he's doing, their qualified P5 definitely has the ability to get himself back up there if he can hang on to the cars in front of him, which there's a bit of a gap between the car in front of him and then the next car between Greg Mack and Sean Hayes, just under a second now. So Foweather is going to have to really put his nose to the grindstone if he wants to try and get back to those cars in front of him. But definitely probably has the ability to do so, especially with a great driver like Soto behind him, who's going to end up probably pushing him down the straight to try and help him. Mitchell Peak just got the lead back from Rui Coimbra here down this back straightaway. Coimbra is not having any of it, and he's going to try and fight back here, as it looks like he's going to see if he can take a look to the outside. Not close enough, and onto the brakes. Mitchell Peak is going to end up leading lap 2 here at Spa.
Yeah, these guys are going to have to be careful. They're not going to want to go switching spots back and forth, or else they're going to lose that gap back to that 4th spot. Kotz is sitting back there. Ronnie Kotz is sitting back there watching these battles, and he's like, yep, keep going, because he's just going to start inching his way up because these guys are not running as fast as they can in a draft. As we talked earlier, it's almost a full second a lap faster in the draft than in qualifying when you're running by yourself. So if these guys are going to start fighting and duking it out for those top 3 spots, Kotz is going to sit back there and just start reeling them back in. As you can see right now, it's 1.5 seconds gap between 3rd and 4th. And I would not be surprised if these guys keep going. You're going to see that time drop down to below 1 second here by the end of this lap if these guys keep battling it out.
And also another thing I want to mention is Rui Coimbra pushing Mitchell Peak down the back straightaway is how the fastest lap, you can tell how the draft affects these guys because of where the fastest lap ends up moving. It started up front towards Scott Keane, then it moved back down to 5th, then it went to Sean Hayes there in 9th, and now it's on Simon Foweather there in 11th, I believe. So, I mean, just with the draft affecting these guys, it just pulls the fastest lap down the leaderboard, and that's one extra bonus point that could make all the difference at the end of the season. Is Simon Foweather currently takes fastest lap with a 2:47.822, and currently he's trying to fend off a hard-charging Greg Mack there in P10.
Yeah, he's picking his way back up. He just passed Mack on the inside and is starting to make his move now. He is closing those gaps. Earlier you were mentioning that he was a full second behind Mack, and he is making his way up. He did seem to lose Joshua Soto back there, but I'm sure Soto's going to pick off Mack here pretty easily and get back on that back bumper of Foweather and help push him back up to the top of the board. As you can see, you see the gap in the 3rd and 4th place cars right now. It is down to 1 second. So I had mentioned that it was coming down.
Yeah, and speaking of gaps coming down, look at Ronnie Coates to Scott Keane there for 3rd and 4th. Ronnie Coates almost within drafting range of those 3 cars in front of him. I mean, that pack from 3rd to 12th probably is helping these guys a lot with trying to get that draft and just getting more momentum down these straightaways in that massive pack of around, I believe, I want to say that is 9 cars there, all working in union to try and catch up to these guys, and they're doing a really good job here as we got a rear bumper camera. Now you can really see how the draft affects these cars as Jordy Fike draws ever closer to Ronnie Coates, and onto the brakes they come into the final corner. And Ronnie Coates is going to get a pretty good run through this chicane here. He got a decent exit. He ended up making up time through there on Scott Keane. Now they're in draft range, and you might see this big pack draw really close to the guys in front of him down this Kemmel straight here. Bray Lombardi takes fastest lap back to Joshua Soto in 11th, and fastest lap tumbling down the leaderboard once again, but Ronnie Coates could be tumbling up the leaderboard here as he tries to work his way back towards the front.
Yeah, and I mentioned it was over a second and a half a difference just a lap ago, and here it is down to 3/4 of a second between third and fourth as we're on board with Ronnie Coates coming and through Radion, and you can see that he's just getting through there and he's starting to push, getting a little closer. If he could get Fike and Lombardi behind him, it definitely is going to start pushing him up even closer. So here comes the times now. You can see it starting to drop big time. It's underneath a half second now as they're coming into Lacombe's, and under hard braking, they have reeled back in those top 3 cars, all because those guys were battling for that 1 to 2 laps, and they just did not catch on and start drafting each other. And now here is the whole pack of cars all the way back to probably about 13th or so. Looks like top 12 cars are all freight training right now. 13th and 14th is just on the outside of that draft area, but they're still hanging on, and we only got 10 minutes down. We still got a whole long race to go yet.
Yeah, we still have 3/4, just over 3/4 of this race remaining as they head down No Name Straight and towards Pouhon here. And I mean, this main pack is just a product of racing at this iconic circuit here, especially in these cars. I mean, normally we see, even in bigger cars tend to stick together here just off of using those straightaways, and the Mazdas take that to a new level here, as these guys, the main pack consists of it looks like maybe 12 to 14 cars here, as Josh Olson is a little bit far behind from Greg Mack in front of him. And I mean, just that gap, or that group of main cars just being 12, that is something I would expect in a NASCAR race, which is something I'm much more accustomed to being an American motorsports fan. I mean, I'd be used to seeing this in a NASCAR race, and I mean, the Miatas are pretty much taking that to Spa here and bringing it to a new level, as these guys are wheeling their cars around this 4-mile racetrack, all within under a blanket for the lead here.
Yeah, and this is, like we mentioned earlier, it is all draft. And we were talking, I mean, I've been in multiple different leagues and not with the Mazdas, and we talk a little bit about the draft, but that's all we're going to talk about this entire time is the draft, because it is basically acting like we said, a big NASCAR track. And if you fall out like the guys back there in the 13th spot, you see that they're almost 2.5 seconds back right now. And if this top group here stays in line for the next lap, I would not be surprised to see that gap get larger to 3 or 4 seconds by the time they come around again the next time.
Yeah, and another thing that we have to worry about here, in about maybe 10 minutes time, we'll be towards the halfway point in this race, and that's when pit stops are going to start coming into play. So these guys have to think now, when are they going to have to try and save fuel here to try and get themselves better off on the pit stops here. I'm not sure when the pit window opens. I'll have to check that very quickly here. But these guys are going to have to stop at least once, and I mean, that just means that well, we've already mentioned that they have to stop once, and I mean, just timing is everything. When do you think they're going to start to come in?
Well, the lap times are going to be about, they could start about lap 6, and they can go as late as lap 11 if you really stretch your fuel mileage. So it's really just depending on how aggressive you are, and if you want to follow the leader into the pits. You want to follow that car that's ahead of you into pit lane so that you can stay in contact with somebody. Like we've talked NASCAR, you don't want to be that solo guy going into pits by yourself and then have to come back out on Daytona or Charlotte in some big tri-oval and you're running out there cutting your own air. You don't have anybody around you to help cut that air and make you run faster. So you really got to play a little bit of teamwork with these guys and try to go in with somebody else at the same time.
And that's really what we see pretty much every race here. Jedediah Babinek missed the start, brought it back on track here. I believe he's heading through the no, he's heading down No Name Straight here. Brings it up onto the curb. It looks like just an off-track false alarm for the 55 car. And Adam, actually, real quick, we have a wreck from John Casey, it seems, here on the 133 car, who's making great progress there for himself. And it looks like breaking into the chicane. Ooh, just overcooks it a little bit. Gets an off track there and has to turn for the second curve and ends up tagging the 19 car. I believe that was Michael Coates, if I'm not mistaken. And that is going to sideline them for the race for the lead. That's actually Bruce Silva, excuse me. And real quick, Adam actually brought up a great point to us. Where actually, before I mention that, Sean Hayes just absolutely bombed. Or no, that was Simon Foweather, completely bombed the chicane there. Almost looked like he had a brake failure. And here it is through Blanchimont and towards the chicane to round off another lap. He's behind Joshua Soto now. So Soto got around him at one point. And it looks like he tried to go to the inside and just completely missed the braking zone. Thankfully, doesn't get anybody involved. That was very close to the two cars in front of him. That was crazy.
Yeah, that could have been completely ugly as he comes in here, and I don't know. It doesn't look like he locked up the tires. I don't know. I mean, this is my dark horse for the whole race, and in one turn he just blew me away.
I think he just completely missed the braking zone there in that 236 car. He never locked up. I think he probably just missed the braking zone. And actually, Adam brought up a great point radioing into us from our virtual production truck that it could be a really big danger zone for these guys if you have to take tires on the pits, in the pits. And I mean, these guys, they could take probably, I would assume, maybe right side or actually, no, excuse me, left side tires, but I'm honestly not sure. But Radion and Eau Rouge could be pretty dangerous if you have to go up that hill with fast switchback full throttle corners on cold or mismatched tires.
Yeah, the pit strategy is definitely going to come into huge play here really soon as we're closing in on that halfway mark. We're about 4 minutes away from that, 4 or 5 minutes away from that halfway mark. And as soon as you see the first guy dive in, I would not be surprised to see the next 5 or 6 guys go in with him at the same time, if not more. It's definitely going to be just like a NASCAR strategy. You see the guy coming ahead of you and you just follow suit because they're going to be inside that pit window that all these guys can do it. But these guys that are running back, if they're smart, they're short, they're lifting early, they're coasting as much as they can, clutching if they have the ability to, and saving as much fuel. And that way they can get that little short fuel out of pit lane.
And it looks like before pit stops get underway here, we're going to go through the field is Mitchell Peak. He made up 2 spots on that first lap, and he's led almost every lap since then over Rui Coimbra, which just behind him started on pole and is doing a great job for himself, just biding his time there in second place and also biding his time behind him. Scott Keane there in the 271 car has just been chilling back there in third all race, not really making a move, just kind of hanging back in line, probably saving some fuel there. And just behind him, Ronnie Coates had to overcome a 2-second deficit to be where he is right now, trailing cars like Jordy Fike behind him here, who rounds out the top 5 at the moment. And these guys have just really had to claw for it all, but who's really had to claw for his work here is Ray Lombardi back there in P6, who has made up 4 spots from his starting position and really is just dominating the open class field right here, as he doesn't have many competitors close to him, as Michael Coates here in P7 is doing quite well for himself there. The American from Pennsylvania inside the top 10. Behind him, Lee Martin, our open class champion last season, doing great for himself back here so far, running with the pros. Joshua Soto has had a steady increase in pace all day long. Here's probably not the best track for him. And then the next open class competitor behind him, Sean Hayes, has made 2 spaces up, but still has a long way to go if he wants to get to Ray Lombardi.
Yeah, in the 11th spot right now, we've got Greg Mack, the Team Esports racer. He's just starting to fall away from Hayes, and I wonder if he's going to start losing contact with that draft here. As we keep going back, we got the 12th spot of Josh Olson in the 21 car from Florida. And then right behind him, you're going to have to help me with this name, Alex.
Ryan
Zabelski. Yeah, that's the first time me seeing that name, so that's a good one. Brian in the 85 car, sitting to the 13th spot, doing a good job. And if he can stay in touch with the car in front of him of Olson, they might be able to pull into somebody ahead of him. Foweather had that earlier problem. It just not even locking up the brakes, but just missing that braking zone into the chicane. Dropped all the way back to the 14th spot, and he was up to probably at 8th or 9th at that time.
Hang on one second here, Mike. Before we move on, we're about to see Foweather drive around the back of us here. And if you look at the back, he's running a Simpsons paint scheme, and the back of his car says, "I'm in danger." Obviously, if you guys have seen that meme, I'm sure you have. I'm pretty sure everybody around him going into that bus stop thought exactly the same thing.
I believe that you might be seeing something different, because for me it is a Red Bull car.
I'm along with Alex here, sir.
Yeah.
Just forget about me. This is why I'm in the production booth and not commentating. My bad.
That's
Goodbye.
exactly why you're there. I'm going to lock the door now, turn your mic off, and you're not allowed to come back out unless you bring pizza.
All right, well, behind Foweather is Jerry DiPiero, who has had a great improvement into this race compared to last week at VIR. He's doing great for himself, 4th in the open class. Edgar Sancinelli only a 2nd behind him there in P16. Top 5 for him in the open class. Sean Ruiz had an incident here early on in the day, really before the green flag ever flew back there in 17th here, as Stephen Hillwell behind these guys as well. And he's currently battling with Sean Ruiz for that spot, as he's trying to get another point to 2 cars behind him in Andrew Kosick, who wasn't able to finish another qualifying lap. And Greg Rockaway doing pretty well for himself back there in 19th. And the pit cycle is officially underway, as Sean Ruiz is our first driver to hop into the pit lane. And Bruce Silva back here in 21st got involved in an incident with Kosick and has just been trying to get an uphill climb ever since. John Casey behind him was also involved in an incident in the chicane. He was the one that actually tapped Bruce Silva. And then Charles Vaccaro, the winner of Sebring, just hasn't had the best day for himself, down 7 spots after the incident on lap 1. Took the faster Ferraris back out, making it all, trying to make it up. Paulo Coimbra doing the exact same thing here, as on lap 1, he had to end up wrecking out. Threw Radion, took the fast Ferrari, and he's back out here as well. That rounds out your field for the drivers who are on track at the moment. And actually, we were talking about Mitchell Peak leading the race. Ronnie Coates has passed 3 cars, and he's now leading this race. And we're going to get a replay here of a double overtake down the Kemmel Straight here from the 31 car. Ronnie Coates heading in from the Great Plains here down the Kemmel Straight. Gets past Scott Keane, gets past Rui Coimbra, gets past Mitchell Peak. 3 passes in 1 straightaway towards Lacombe. And Mike, I mean, if you still don't think the draft doesn't apply to these cars here, you gotta be insane with that move.
That was absolutely insane. I did not think that I would see a triple overtake at any point of this race, but Ronnie Coates just lays it down coming up that straight. He must have had just an absolute run coming through Radion, and he just said, you know what, I'm going for it. Give me full send, and then we're going all the way to the top. So it's good to see Ronnie out in front now. Mitchell Peak dropping back behind. Now Mitchell Peak can start playing that game, start playing that fuel saving a little bit, because he was out front for quite a while. He was the one cutting the air for everybody, and now it's time for Peak to actually save a little bit and not end up hung dry like these other guys that have been sitting there saving fuel the entire time. I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing these guys start coming in as Coates goes on the outside just a little bit. I don't know if why he would do that high line around there, and he's getting off track. Yeah, he must be still. He's like, you know what? I showed you guys how fast I can go. I'm going to sit back here and let you guys think about me some more. But I wouldn't be surprised if he starts seeing some guys start pitting here pretty soon. We had that Ruiz come in the first time. A whole bunch of mess coming out of there. I mean, Alex, what do you think that's going on, Alex?
Originally, I thought that he went wide through Blanchemont because he had Mitchell peaked. He was inside and was forced to. Here's Greg Mack, the second car to elect to come to pit road here. I mean, that just might be a loss of focus there. He took the lead, could have gotten excited from that, and just ended up losing a bit of focus from it and ended up getting passed back for the lead here as Greg Mack and Edgar Sancinelli, as well as Stephen Hellowell, have entered the pit lane. And it looks like left side tires are going to be the tires that take there as you see the 2 car going up onto the jack stands there. And it looks like he's going to be let down and now getting fuel into the car for that number 2 machine here for these guys. And looks like more cars going up onto the jacks as well, so it looks like left side tires are going to be the tires to take, but like we were mentioning earlier, I mean, it could be deadly if you head up through Eau-Rouge and Raidillon with cold or mismatched tires, so you think anybody might try and just try not take tires and try and stay on those old ones to just try and have to avoid that and come out of the pits with already warm tires.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the tire wear is going to be like with these cars and what the cars are going to feel like after running for, 10 laps or so like the guys are coming in right now. I know in other classes of races that I've done around here, we've gone, double stints, which almost 2 hours on tires. So I'm not too sure what the Mazdas are like on a track like this. I would almost rather either take a full set or no set at all and try to keep the tires balanced and matched, because going to a cold set of tires on one side of the car, especially when you're trying to carry as much speed around these turns as you can, that's going to be real tough to drive around.
Yeah, as these guys, it looks like 2 cars are side by side back there. I could have been wrong. I thought I saw Michael Coates going out a little bit wide. Looks like everybody's sorting themselves out as Joshua Soto has picked off more cars there and has clawed his way up to P8 after gaining 11 spots since the start of this race. So great job for him. It's been an uphill battle for him all day. But coming to lap 10 for these guys, if I'm not mistaken, looking at some notes here, the pit window is from lap 6 to lap 11 here. And the race distance estimated is around 16 laps. So if these guys come in this time, they're only going to have to take around 5 laps worth of fuel as they go side by side for the lead into Blanchemont here. So we could very well be expecting pit stops for pretty much everybody in this main pack this lap here, as it looks like Ronnie Coates going to take that lead pack, but Mitchell Peak thinking about going for it, not going to do it here as they head through the chicane. And if nobody pits, Ronnie Coates is going to lead this lap, but no, people do pit. Mitchell Peak and Coimbra, as well as Jordy Fike and Soto swerved. Hayes comes down the pit lane as well. And it looks like out of the main pack, 5 cars in total stayed out, that being Ronnie Coates, Scott Keane, Ray Lombardi, Michael Coates, and Lee Martin. All of the other 5 cars that were in the lead pack end up heading down the pit lane. Simon Foweather in there as well. So the green flag pit cycle has definitely started, but I mean, the advantage that the guys that stayed out and are seemingly going to go for an overcut here is that they're going to have to spend less time in the pits due to taking just slightly less fuel here. Do you think it could work?
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We see a lot of guys taking that left side tires. So I'm guessing the tire wear, they noticed this during practice that the tire wear was heavy on that side of the car. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, if they're going to be able to do an overcut or an undercut, because this group of cars right here, these guys were drafting the whole time. So how much fuel did they save? How quick is their stop going to be? And are they going to be able to overcut that group, that first pack of cars that came in? We were talking about it. As soon as one car peeled off to go into the pits, a whole group of probably 4 or 5 were going to jump in with them, and that's what happened. You had the top 5 cars jump in, and then the next 5 just stayed right out. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys work their way around. You got Coates and Keane, and Lombardi in the open car in the 3rd spot right now. This could be just a huge deal for him to jump him into the top of the board if they're able to do that overcut right now.
And this field of cars that stayed out here is pretty stacked, so if they stick together, they could maybe make up a bit of time, even not on pit lane. I mean, obviously, you got Ronnie Coates, one of the greatest drivers in this series, hasn't gotten a win yet, though. Scott Keane right behind him, as well as Michael Coates, 2 new drivers already going on a tear. You got Ray Lombardi, currently 3 spots ahead of his nearest open class competitor. Then you have Lee Martin back there, the open class champion last year, so definitely 5 very fast drivers who could probably fast enough to try and create a bit of a gap here as they head through Stavolo down the back straightaway once again. And honestly, if these guys were to pit, I would say they'll probably do it right now, because, I mean, if they come in now, they'll have the advantage of everybody coming in slow out of the pits. They'll be able to take advantage of that time, take less fuel without having to worry about the others making time up on them with a warm tires, as they'd be warmed up at that time. As Lombardi tries to make a move for the lead, that's going to force Keane to the inside. And if these guys pit, that could be disastrous here. And it looks like Ronnie Coates swerves to the outside. Lombardi stays out, and this could be disastrous, as just one lap without draft could sideline your entire race. But everybody else comes into the pits. That's Ronnie Coates, Scott Keane, Michael Coates, and Lee Martin, Brian Zabelski, and Josh Olson also head into the pits this lap. Now we have to see where everybody else is, as it looks like Rui is heading through the final corner at the moment with Mitchell Peak on his tail. I believe that's them. Yes, here they are heading to the final corner, so these guys better pray that they can get out of the pits in time. They're still sitting in their stalls, none of them moving just yet. I think at this point, Rui is just getting around them here, but Coates is going to have the advantage of having the inside through this hairpin. He could take the lead here. I'm not sure if he will, though. Where is he? There he is. And it looks like Rui and Mitchell are going to have a better drive off the corner, but Ronnie Coates is still going to be able to hang with him here. He gets out of the pit at just the right moment, but here's side by side into Oroch and Radion. Looks like Coates hangs on it just a little bit here. And now, for the provisional leaders, we have 3 cars under a blanket for the provisional lead.
Yeah, we're back to having those 3 cars together again. And if these guys can stay freight training the rest of the way out, I think they're going to just run away and hide from these guys. Unless that, I mean, you got the 135 of Joshua Soto in the 4 spot right now. He's out there in no man's land. He's by himself. So hopefully he can get that pack behind him to reel in with him as Michael Coates goes on the coming around the outside there, or on the inside. In the 213, trying to make a move. I mean, he thought wiser of it, just didn't want to get too hard on the brakes, especially with those fresh left side tires that a lot of these guys are taking. Looks like we might have had just a little replay of him coming through. Got that run coming up on the inside, and he was actually able to make a pass on the 149 of Lee Martin coming into Lacombe's, and is able to hold on to that spot. So that was a good pass from him to gain that spot on Lee Martin.
If he really wanted to go for it, he could have probably gone all the way here, but I think Ray Lombardi is going to end up falling back quite a bit just from a singular lap without draft. We're going to see if the Dutchman comes into the pits this lap, so I'm not sure what he's going to do here. 1 lap without draft could have just messed up his entire race. I think he'll still have the gap to be in front of Sean Hayes, his nearest open class competitor, but it's going to be close. As, I mean, just we've seen how much the draft affects these cars, and just 1 lap without it can really sideline you for the rest of the race.
Oh, absolutely. Just looking at the leaderboard, you're looking at fast laps right now, and your guys, so many guys are in the 247s as Lombardi comes in for his pit stop. So many guys are qualifying in the 247s, and your pole sitter earlier was in a 248, if I remember correctly. So it's over a full second difference in lap time just on the draft alone. So here's Lombardi coming in for his stop. I wonder if he was able to save enough fuel earlier and make it a short stop, but it looked like he may have rolled too long in his pit stall too. That would be just absolutely dreadful. He's picking up the left side tires just like so many other guys were. It looks like your leaders are coming down the pit straight right now, and he's still sitting there, and we're waiting to see where he's going to come out. Because he was running up front in that pack, and he is still sitting in pit lane. So you see how much difference that draft, how 1 lap of draft made such a difference. He's going to be coming out and probably going to be about the 8th to 10th spot. and almost out of any kind of draft range of anybody right now as he just comes out of pit lane, and it all goes back to that chicane pass. He was trying to make that pass and ended up out of line with these guys and ended up off track for one more lap by himself.
Yeah, and that's going to give Sean Hayes the open class lead there as he runs in P5 for the first time tonight. And really, the battle is starting to heat up for the lead as Mitchell Peak right on the back bumper of Rui Coimbra, and Ronnie Coates back there as well. So currently with just around 12 and a half minutes remaining in this race, we have a 3-car battle for the lead. And with the draft, it's definitely going to stay this way. So we have to keep an eye on this as Joshua Soto made some good moves on pit road, and now he's up into 4th after not even really being in contention at all this race. So a great job from him in that 135 car.
No, he's picked up 15 spots. I mean, that's just crazy right now. And he's doing a great job. His quick lap right now looks to be one of the fastest on the board. He does have fast lap right now with a 147.1, which is really impressive. And we noticed that earlier in the race when he was drafting with the guys. But he's kind of in no man's land right now. He's what, 4 seconds behind the group ahead of him and 4 seconds ahead of the group behind him. So he's really got to get going. If he's got any chance of catching the cars ahead of him, he's got to get tangled up with the guys behind him or hope for some problems with the guys in front of him.
Yeah, but if I were Soto here in this 135 car, I'd be content to just sit here and just drive the car, make sure I don't make any mistakes. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, top 5 it ain't going to be that bad, especially if it's off pit road at a track that you knew you weren't going to be very good at. And that seems to be the case for Soto here. Wasn't very competitive all day. Got the strategy right on pit road and is just cruising back there in P4. But Jordy Fike was really a big loser. That's a bit mean. I don't want to say that, but I mean, he lost a lot of spots on pit road that through the green flag pit cycle and ends up now in P11 behind Ray Lombardi, even after staying out a lap.
Yeah, another big one that dropped a lot of spots was Scott Keane. I mean, he's down 6 spots right now from where he qualified earlier, and he's just struggling right now. So, we got tangled up with the car ahead of him. I think it was Lee Martin. Was that he coming out of the chicane there? I don't know if he got into him or what happened. It looked like he may have tapped his back bumper as they came into the chicane. As they're coming in there right now, you see Michael Coates is actually the car that it was. And they come into the section, and he's right on his back bumper and just gets a little bit better drive. It taps into the back of Coates there and causes, wow, that's a lot of damage on the back of that car.
Yeah, and it looked like just with the way Coates checked up there, the car behind him just had nowhere to go, and that's going to put a sideline to his race here. That was Scott Keane in the 271 car, and even with that back bumper damage, that's going to really affect his performance, especially in the draft here. And with just 10 minutes remaining in this race, as Scott Keane looks for a move on the 149 car, Lee Martin gets his nose out in front. He's getting closer to Sean Hayes, not able to complete the move, though, as they head into Lacombe, but he gets around Lee Martin, and the thing to watch for the remainder of this race is for the top 3. We have about 9.5 minutes remaining in this race, just over 9 minutes. When do you decide to go? It's around 2 minutes and 48 seconds a lap. So for these guys, that's going to be, besides this one, probably 3 laps remaining in this race. So for Mitchell Peak and Ronnie Coates just riding in line behind Rui Coimbra, when do you go? When do you decide that this is the lap? This is when I must make my move. As here we see a almost 3 wide replay of a group of cars heading into Lacombe. That's the 57 of Edgar Stancinelli and the 48 of Stephen Ellowell.
That is a good battle for these guys going at it right now for where they about the 16th spot right now. It looks like a great battle for these guys, and around a long track like this, when you get to be solo and running around by yourself, it gets a little boring. And to be able to still hang out with these guys and battle it out, it makes the fun race. But going back to your question with Peak and Coates up there sitting in 2nd and 3rd, when's the go time? I would really start looking about a lap and a half to go. Is when I start positioning myself. And by now, I would have already thought about, okay, I'm getting a better run here than Rui. I'm able to get him here, but he's pulling me here. So you start planning your race. That's what Mitchell should have been doing for like the last 5 laps, because he's just been sitting back there this entire time. And going back to Ronnie, I mean, Ronnie made that pass coming up the Kemmel Straight earlier and passed 3 cars that we never even thought would ever have happened. And Ronnie's just thinking, hey, I can do that again. But can I do it? Can I hold them off for the rest of the race? Can I wait till the last lap and get by them all? So the 2 guys in the back are just really thinking about what can I do? Where am I going to do it? And they've already got it planned out in their head, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the thing that Ronnie Coates has to worry about there back in P3, we mentioned that he passed 3 cars earlier. You mentioned that, Mike, and it was a great move, no doubt, but a thing he could worry about is what if Mitchell Peak decides to try and make a move on Rui at the same spot that Ronnie is able to make a move? I mean, does Ronnie risk going 3 wide and try and still make that move, or does he hang off in line and still have to wait there? Is Joshua Soto actually, it appears he's closing the gap to these guys.
Yeah, he's within 3 seconds now, which is a great run, and that's a testament to just his driving ability. If you look at their last lap times, he was a 1/10 of a second faster than Rui out in front. So he's gaining, but I think he's really going to start running out of time because these guys are still going to stay freight training for at least 1 more lap. And then I think there's going to be no holds barred after that. And this could be an absolute barn burner of a finish with these 3 guys.
Yeah, and we've seen it happen before here for the Spec-5 World Tour in seasons past here, as I wonder, there's Ray Lombardi heading towards the no-name straight. I know it's a far-fetched idea with how far back Ray is, but do you think that if Ray really focuses here, he might be able to make up that gap to the cars in front of him? I mean, with only 6 minutes left, it's going to be a really big ask, but do you think he might be able to pull it off by the slimmest of circumstances?
Well, we saw earlier that when Lombardi came out of the pits, he was kind of in that no man's land. He didn't have anybody around him, but Fike kind of reeled him in just behind him, and Jordy's right behind him, and then he's also got Keen back there. And they're going to start pushing him along and actually picking up the pace a little bit. But as I mentioned earlier, I think it's really running out of time because we're at 5 minutes to go. You've only got 2, maybe 3 laps left, 2.5 laps at the most of a race left. And that's a long ask for him to catch up to Hayes in the 5th spot. I mean, that's almost 10 seconds, and that's a huge gap right now.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen crazier stuff happen in this series, but definitely is going to be a big ask for Ray Lombardi there in P8 overall, P2 in class after a bit of a mistake on pit road. And here's Jordy Fike actually trying to get around him there as they head into the chicane. Not going to be able to do it. Trying maybe to go for the switchback onto the main straight, but Scott Keen is going to hold on to that spot for now as Jordy continues to try the attack here as they head down the main straight. Gets to the outside as they head towards the hairpin here. Greg Mack and Sean, actually no, it's Lee Martin side by side for those positions as well. Looks like Greg is going to get his nose out in front, but not close enough to clear him. Now he's close enough to clear him. And it looks like, I mean, they're probably, if I'm not mistaken, they're probably going to be coming to the white flag probably this time by. So, I mean, I would say, you said a lap and a half to go would be your go time, Mike. At what point of the track would you decide it's a lap and a half to go? Probably heading down Stavelone down the backstretch, you'd think?
Yeah, this is about where I'd start making my move because this is where you want to get a good run out of Radion and up the Kemmel Straight and start making your pass. And you see my fellow Californian, Lee Martin, trying to go on the inside and trying to make a tight move. I mean, like I said, it's about a lap and a half to go, and this is when these guys are starting to go at it. Lee's trying to get past Hayes, and I mean, he's trying to also stay clean because Hayes is in the open class. He doesn't want to ruin somebody else's race just for him to gain 1 spot on the grid. But if he's able to hang on to it, Martin could to piggyback Hayes and drop him back. And if that's the case, you could open that door for Lombardi to reel in just a tiny little bit. We've got at least another lap to go. This could be their white flag this time by. We'll just have to see what the leaders look like when they come by the straight. But you still got Rui Coimbra out in front. A very impressive drive for the 78 car. And these top 3 cars have been very impressed this entire race. But I really don't want to count out Ronnie back there in that 3rd spot. I really, that's the guy I'm watching for right now when we've got less than 3 minutes to go. He's the guy that I'm going to watch for this last-ditch lap.
All right, guys, I'm going to cut back in one more time here. Sorry, Alex. Before we go into the last lap, Mike, I don't think you were with us when we watched the Daytona race, when I believe it was 6th place was able to win that race on the final lap. So I wouldn't count Ronnie out by any stretch of the imagination at this point.
And real quickly, before we get to watch the last few minutes of action here, and it looks like there are going to be 2 to go this time by, so while we get ready to watch actually, no, this is the white flag, so real quick, we're going to shout out our sponsor, TPC Motorsports, which is a 4-year-old racing team based in Birmingham, Alabama, that currently races a Caterham 7 420R in the HSR series and a BMW Spec E46. So big thank you to them for supporting the Spec-5 World Tour and letting us do what we love to do up here in the booth every week. And we're about to witness something like that once again as Mitchell Peak is going to get a great run on Rui Coimbra down this short chute between turn 1 and Radion and Eau Roche here. And it looks like he's going to get a run up the hill. We're going to have to see what happens down the Camel Straight. Ronnie Coates also has an amazing run. Stalls a little bit to get good momentum out of Radion. Here they go down the Camel Straight for the final time tonight. And it looks like, and here they go. Mitchell Peak tries to get to the outside, and Ronnie Coates has the same idea. 3 wide down the Camel Straight on the white flag, side drafting each other. It looks like Ronnie Coates has the lead into the corner. Onto the brakes. All come. Ronnie Coates goes from 3rd into the lead on the last lap here, but they still have 1 more straightaway to do it here in about a minute's time.
Man, I knew Ronnie was going to make a move, but I did not know that all 3 of them are going to go into that turn 3 wide. I have never seen 3 cars go into that section, into Lacombs, side by side like that. Ronnie Coates out in front. He's got about a 1/4 of a second lead right now on Roy Coimbra, and Mitchell Peak in that 3rd spot. It is going to be just a knockdown, drag-out brawl for these guys as they're coming into the last half a lap right now.
Oh, well, Mike, you said you haven't paid much attention to this series. This is what it's like every week, man. They still got a lot of time left, and Mitchell Peak could try and pull off the same move that Ronnie Coates did into the chicane on the last lap. You think 3 wide into Lacombe is impressive. Wait till you see what they do on this back straightaway. Through the stretch of twisty corners downhill for the final time into Fanes here, I believe. Then they're going to head towards Savalo for the final time. Great rear bumper camera to see exactly what Coimbra's doing behind Ronnie Coates. And here they come into Stavalo for the final time. This is the money section of racetrack. Down this back straightaway, full throttle from here until the chicane. Rui's going to have the draft. You can see that gap starting to close. Mitchell Peak is drawing in as well. 45 minutes, it all comes down to this under the DHL banner for the last time. Barreling towards Blanchimont as all 3 cars, they were thinking, Mitchell Peak was thinking about trying to force them 3 wide. He was thinking about it. Here they come towards the chicane. They're side by side for the lead. Rui Coimbra's out front. Let's see what Mitchell Peak tries to do from there in second. Onto the brakes they come for the last time here at Spa. Rui Coimbra with the lead, and it looks like he's going to stay out there with the last lap, last corner pass. Side by side for second, but it's going to be Rui Coimbra winning round 4 of the Spec-5 World Tour here from Spa. Big battle here for P5. This is between Lee Martin and Sean Hayes. To the line they come, and it looks like, I want to say just barely, Lee Martin is going to grab that spot. Then it's Greg Mack in 6th behind them. Ray Lombardi ends up clawing himself back up to 8th, then Jordy Fike in 9th. Scott Keane in 10th, Simon Foweather in 11th, Brian Zabelski in 12th, Michael Coates in 13th, Josh Olson in 14th, and my God, Jerry DiPiero, great improvement for himself from last weekend. What a battle off the last corner for this group of cars. Sean Ruiz is going to lead them to the checkered flag with Stephen Helloel, Edgar Sancinelli, and Greg Brockway behind him. Then it's Andrew Kosick getting himself across the line, and Bruce Silva currently heading to the final chicane as well. There he is. And then who's really heading to the final? Wow. I really completely messed up my English. Sean Casey heads to the final chicane to cross the line. Now it's all up to Charles Vaccaro and Paulo Coimbra to finish their races, but that was incredible.
Now that was absolutely a spectacular finish. We were talking about the draft the entire time, and that was just, I mean, all you have to do is show anybody the last lap of this race and show them how important that draft is and what you can do with it. I mean, you went from third to first to third to second in just a matter of a lap. But the caliber of those three drivers, because I don't think they even touched each other that entire lap, and that was just a spectacular finish and a spectacular drive from all three of those guys.
And wow, I thought Sebring was incredible. I don't think this tops it, but that was absolutely insane from everybody involved. Another fantastic race as the final car of Paulo Coimbra is going to head across the line as everybody on track now for a parade lap here. We're going to go to your final race results. Rui Coimbra with the last lap, last corner pass, ends up taking his fourth win in a row for the Spec-5 World Tour here at Spa. Ronnie Coates just barely gets edged out to finish second. Mitchell Peak finished side by side with him to finish out the podium in third. Then it's Joshua Soto. Great uphill battle from him all day there in fourth. Lee Martin there in fifth. Sean Hayes steals the open class win from Ray Lombardi after a pit strategy mess up there in P6 overall. Greg Mack, I'm really just messing up my English. Greg Mack gets seventh there. Ray Lombardi unfortunately messes himself up on pit road, ends up finishing P8. Jordy Fike in ninth. Scott Keane rounds out the top 10 in 10th. Simon Foweather unfortunately made a mistake into the chicane and ended up finishing 11th. Brian Zabelski there in P12. Michael Coates in P13. Josh Olson in P14. Jerry DiPiero, great uphill race from him compared to last week, and he finishes 15th. Sean Ruiz there in 16th. Stephen Hellowell in 17th. Edgar Sancinelli in 18th. Then it's Greg Brockway in 19th, Andrew Cossack in 20th, Bruce Silva in 21st, John Casey in 22nd, Charles Vaccaro in 23rd, Paulo Coimbra in 24th, Jedediah Babinek in P25, and Tom Rath. It looks like he never even started. Actually, no, he did start the race, but all four of those bottom four drivers were involved in that last one incident, and that is going to round out your field for tonight here in the Spec-5 World Tour. And my, that was just what a race from everybody. But what do you say we get to some interviews here? I'm going to drag in the only person in the waiting room, and it's going to be the person who won the day. The lap in the final corner. Rui Coimbra, you did it again.
Hey guys, yeah, what a fun race. That was wasn't expecting that again. I don't know. I feel like Lady Luck's still on my side there. I'll take all the luck I can get.
And I mean, what were you thinking the last lap there? I mean, you think you're leading on the last lap, I believe, and all of a sudden you realize, okay, this is where Mitchell's going to make a move, and then Ronnie Coates shoots from P3 to the lead, just like he did a few laps before that, and you end up getting around him going into the bus stop on the final lap. I mean, what was that like from behind the wheel?
Yeah, going into the last lap, being in front, those two guys behind me, I thought I was P3 for sure. So I saw Mitchell going for the pass, Ronnie on the outside. I just tried to get a little bit of side draft of Mitchell, and it kind of pulled me back up a little bit, enough to get alongside on the inside line, and I think he backed out of it. And then I felt like I was in a really good position all of a sudden going into that back straight, behind Ronnie. I liked my chances, and yeah, just it all came together. It was a clean race. Those guys are super fast. I think we had like a 10-car train, in that first stint. So to break away with just 3 cars in the front was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Rui,
I know the pits. Oh, go ahead,
Rui.
Mike.
I just want to jump in real quick, Rui. This is my first time watching you guys, being able to comment with you guys, and I have just thoroughly impressed on watching that last lap battle with the three of you, being able to be clean that entire time. You guys were not banging fenders, you weren't banging bumpers, nothing. And I just wanted to say that was absolutely spectacular to watch, and I'm sure it was even more fun behind the wheel.
Oh yeah, I was shaking after that. Ronnie and I are on the same team, so we have a ton of respect for each other. And Mitchell and I were also part of Team Watson Racing and done lots of laps together, and just racing with those two guys. The laps we've done and the respect we have for each other usually leads to really good racing.
Hey,
Yeah,
Rui,
I mean-
it's Adam Thompson here in the booth, man. And I think I gotta ask you as well. Did you expect when you started this race, Ronnie Coates did it not once, Rui, but twice, a 3-car pass going in to that corner into Lacombe? Did you see that coming? Could you expect that with the draft and everything? I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I saw it in the corner of my eye in the mirror. He just flew by us, like he was in a different class car. And what was impressive is that he cleared all of us going into the turns. So it was, and Ronnie's so quick too. I mean, he's got the pace to win this race too. It's just the draft here keeps you in the game and keeps everybody involved. So I think the key was really getting good pit stops. The three of us had really quick pit stops, broke away from the rest of the field, and just try to work together to keep the gap. I think Soto was P4, closing us down a little bit, and just another great race with great guys.
It really was, man. I'm going to hand this back over to the actual commentators, Rui, but I just want to tell you, every race that I've watched in this league for the past two seasons, and I've been lucky enough to broadcast it, man, you guys have done such a great job. Congrats, and keep it up.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, well, Rui, I'm going to drag you back. Congrats on the win once again, and we'll see you probably next week, I'm just going to assume at this point. So it was a fun race, and hope to see you up here next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right. And that was Rui Kornberg, your winner here tonight. And Mike, I thought you said you locked the production truck trailer. I thought you said he couldn't get out again.
Well, he brought me some pizza and he dragged me into letting him back out. So
all right, you know what? Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. If it was for pizza, I think that might be worth it.
Yeah, for sure. As long as it's extra pepperoni and a little sausage on the side. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Completely derailed the train right here. Go ahead and continue with Ray.
All right, but next we're going to drag in an open class driver who ended up getting second on the day after what I only gonna assume is just a pit strategy mishap. Mike, I'll let you have him, but Ray, what happened?
Yeah, well, I figured I wanted an extra lap point, so I stayed out, but my lap was slow, and then my pit was subpar, to say the least, and I came out just behind the pack, so I couldn't get the draft. That was a little bit too bad, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the race. Look, second is good enough.
Yeah, it looked like a great race from you, Ray. The entire race you were running with the pack and you were able to hang with those guys. Did you have any idea of wanting to jump in the pits with the whole pack came in, or did you have set in your mind that you were going to go that extra lap?
Yeah, I was set to get the lead lap. I had so much draft the entire time before the pits that I figured I must have had at least an extra lap of fuel left, which was true. But it was close. It was close, to be honest. I had about 0.4 liters left when I went into the pits. So yeah, it was. I got the extra point. I figured I would come back into the pack, but I pitted a little bit too slow, sadly. But yeah, that extra point was I guess worth it.
Yeah. No, it looked like a great race from you, and you were in the thick of it with the pro guys. Did you have any close calls that entire race, or was it pretty clean sailing the entire time with you?
Well, I'm not sure if you picked up on the incident, but the last lap, I think it was, me and Jordy had some contact in the turn 4 or 5, I think it was. He came in the inside, and I thought I had more room. So he clipped my back, and we almost both went down, but luckily we were both able to save it. Otherwise, we might have ended up 12th or 14th, I think.
Yeah, no, that could have been close. That could have been really bad for you guys. It's good to see you. This is my first time with the league, but it's good to see you up front running in there with that, finish the top second in your guys' group. You got anything you want to shout out or anybody you want to thank while you got a minute here?
Yeah, well, same as last week. Thank you guys for the awesome broadcast. It's really top quality, and yeah, I love to race here, so I'm really happy to be in this.
All right, great race today, Ray, and I look forward to seeing more from you in the next coming weeks.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
That was your second place car in the open class of Ray Lombardi. He was my pick earlier on, and I should have asked him about that braking. I did not think about it until just we got rid of him, about breaking into that chicane section and how he flew past so many cars.
Yeah, and real quick, we are going to, before we get some another 2 interviews, I believe, we're going to share with you our next broadcasts here tonight. So this Sunday night at 8:10 p.m. EST, XSLR returns for its final 410 dirt sprint, winged dirt sprint cars here from Eldora for the final leg of the dirt oval section for those guys. Then for them, it's on to Silver Crowns. But next Tuesday as well, we have WSRL at 8:45 p.m. EST, which is the Dallara LMP2s and the GT3 cars at Sebring. And it's their season finale, so you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that. And then AMS, just 20 minutes later at 9:05 p.m. EST on Tuesday, returns from the Homestead Road Course with the Mustang FR500S. So you're not going to want to miss that, as we know the SBO Network's American Muscle Series produces some fantastic racing for these guys. But I mean, that was just absolutely an insane race from everybody. I mean, I thought that was going to go to Ronnie Coates. I mean, especially going into the final corner, but it looks like Mitchell just decided to push Rui and just wasn't able to try and dive to the inside there to complete the last lap pass.
Ronnie thought about hanging on to that outside line coming into the first part of the chicane and hopefully being able to hold side by side and keep that inside line. But it was probably better that he actually did jump back in line and get a better run coming out of that second part of the chicane, and able to hang on to that second spot, because if he was too tight on that second part of the chicane, he could have lost second to Mitchell, and Mitchell could have got a way better run coming up that pit straight and snagged that second spot from him.
I'm so sorry, Mike, but yeah, I wanted to cut in here real quick. We've got someone here in the interview waiting booth that hasn't ever joined us so far, and we're here at race 3. We shouldn't be race 3. We should be race 4 at this point, so I apologize for that on the overlays, guys. But we're going to drag Greg Brockway in here, one of the league admins of Spec-5, and just, haven't had him in here so far, but I did want to talk to Greg just about what's been going on here for the past couple seasons with SMB, and talk to you, Greg, about kind of how the league runs, kind of the way that you do things over there, but also what we got to do to get people in touch with you if they do want to start racing in Spec-5, because man, the race you guys put on tonight was amazing.
Well, they can either go to iRacing and just search for Spec-5 World Tour and ask to join, or they could send me a Discord message.
Yeah, that's no problem, Greg. So right now we are actually on board with you tonight, man. What was your race like out there at Spa? I know the draft it'll make or break your race. What was your thought process?
Well, in the chicane before the start, I got tangled up with somebody. He spun out, so then I waited for him. So then we were, way far back. We ended up caught some people, and then I could stay with them.
Yeah, so you're going into Monza, September 8th. You guys are going to head to Monza. How, more or less, what do you think that's going to be compared to this? I mean, I do believe that's a pretty draft-heavy track as well, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been like 3 years since I've been there. I don't even remember that track.
Well, Greg, I just wanted to drag you in here, man, just as a Spec-5 admin. And
well, I think Spec-5's going great. Got a great group of guys. 10 seasons now. For a while, we had 4 or 5 people coming.
No, and you've absolutely done a great job with the league, and I just wanted to give you a huge shout out and a huge thanks for bringing Slow Motion Broadcasting on board. I mean, I know we're not ever able to drag you in here into the interview waiting room, so just wanted to do that and give you a thank you and my appreciation to everybody that's viewing right now.
Well, I really appreciate all the racers that's in Spec-5, because they get along good, they race clean, and makes it fun.
Absolutely, Greg. Well, thank you so much, man, for joining here last second, but I'm going to ask you, you've already shouted everybody out, but just want to say thanks again, Greg, and I'll talk to you hopefully again soon.
Yep, Slow Motion Broadcasting does a great job every week, too.
All right, thanks, Greg. Have a great night.
Yep, see you.
Okay, Alex, now you can go ahead and sign the broadcast off, man. I wanted to get one of the admins in here just to show my appreciation here for the league and what we just witnessed.
Yeah, no problem. So, Mike, I mean, it was great having you up here. I mean, I thought that race was fantastic, but what was your opinion on it?
Man, I'm glad you carried pretty much the whole last lap, because I sat here with my mouth open just watching and just in awe and trying not to say anything, because that run up the back, that straightaway, the Kemmel Straight, it was amazing watching those three guys go and not knowing who's going to let off, who's going to hold that line. You know, there was, I don't know. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, it was just another jaw-dropping race from these guys. And viewers, if you thought this race was crazy, you got to check out the Spec-5 2 weeks from now at Monza, and also in the upcoming races after that to finish off Season 10. But, I mean, I know the 3-wide finish at Sebring was obviously just absolutely insane, but this race, the finish of this race is definitely not too far behind it, and just another fantastic show from everybody. But that's going to do it for us. My name is Alex Andersen. I have been joined in the booth by Mike Braun with Adam Thompson in our virtual production truck that we got to keep a bit more secure so it doesn't break out a few more times. But anyways, that's going to do it for us for Season 10 of Round 4 of the Spec-5 World Tour here from Spa. Have a good night.